Time is 8:31 Central African time. And if finding a job is one of the biggest pressures facing South African households, well, so too is the cost of keeping the lights on. Electricity tariffs continue to put pressure on household budgets at a time when food, transport, and other basic costs are already stretching incomes. And for many families, this is no longer simply about the price of electricity. It is about what gets sacrificed when the bill comes in. Is it food? Is it transport? Is it school expenses or other essentials so that we can, I don't know, get a bit of electricity, get heat in this cold? And there's also a bigger question around South Africa and how we have or find ourselves having to need to find reliable electricity supply with the affordability crisis that's facing ordinary consumers. And that's the conversation that we're going to be having. We'll be joined by Lise Makaula, Advocacy and Program Lead at the Green Connection. Lise, good morning. Welcome to News and Views. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm so sorry. There's a bit of noise where I'm at.
No worries. We can hear you loud and clear. And once again, thank you for joining us. I want to jump right into it. I want to start with, the impact on ordinary households. How serious is the pressure of electricity costs when it comes to placing, households on edge, having to decide what to sacrifice just to simply put the lights on?
Yeah. I mean, electricity has gone up quite rapidly, and it's not just electricity. On the other side, it's transport costs, and inflation has been just making food prices go up. And, that is putting a burden on vulnerable communities as well as households, because now they either have to choose between buying electricity or buying bread. And all of this is because of policies that have not been amended to fit the current energy infrastructure. But also the times are quite rapidly changing,
Mm.
with the geopolitical tensions, it does lead to the energy costs, having to go up because of our reliance on fossil fuels. So basically, the country should be looking into alternative energy solutions, cheaper, more reliable, but also that won't hit the pocket of citizens.
Mm, 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 mm. It's interesting when someone always points out that we need to find alternative energy sources which have many benefits, but then you have the counter argument of those that say, well, what about mines, for instance, which hire hundreds and thousands of South Africans? We are amongst
Mm,
the biggest coal producers in the world. What about the impact of that, and some of the towns that
yeah.
are built around mines? What's your counter argument to that?
I mean, definitely. First of all, the process that you've just described is called the just energy transition.
Yeah.
When you are moving away from industries that are heavily reliant on high carbon, and then you are moving to industries that have low carbon emissions, you can't just switch up overnight. So it means that you need a plan in place, and that means that you need to think of the people that are already employed in those industries, the ones that we're talking about, the fossil fuel industries. You need to think in terms of how will they get reskilled and get employed in the current energy industry. But all of that, it's a plan that needs to come from government, and so that it's put forward to say this is how we're going to reskill the people in this industry. So that they can be able to be employed, in these new sectors. Because at the end of the day, change is here, and it's something that you can't run away from. It's just that it needs proper planning and proper policy frameworks.
Mm, mm, mm. How much of I was just reading your media release here, and then there was a staggering number. The fact that Eskom has implemented around 12 consecutive annual tariff increases, and I'm just thinking to myself, how much of that comes down to the general cost of generating electricity, and how much of it can be linked to the known inefficiencies and problems within Eskom and the system itself.
Mm. I mean, last year there was a proposed tariff increase, which was 6%, if I'm not mistaken. And this year there was another tariff increase that was proposed, and all of these things, the tariff structure is being proposed because Eskom has to recover the costs of operating, but also the costs of, of their legacy assets and all of that, which is actually, a bit of a problematic issue, because now it's an entity that is still continuing to use fossil fuels, and as I've said, fossil fuels are very expensive, and
Mm,
they react to anything that has to do with geopolitics. For instance, if the country would focus on gas and say our electricity is now, we are getting electricity from gas and we are using gas to power, it basically means that anytime there's a geopolitical tension, electricity prices could fluctuate, because the gas prices are linked internationally. So those are
mm,
the things that the public should be querying and questioning, in terms of why are we actually paying for mistakes that are not necessarily ours, because either way they have to recover operating costs, because the policy itself says that, which is the electricity pricing policy. And that is why we have been calling for the minister to actually review this policy and make sure that the tariff structure is not impacting on vulnerable communities, because currently electricity is very expensive, and people are not affording it, and with food going up, and transport, it is definitely putting a burden on vulnerable communities as well as households.
mm. My next question, I think, is it's one that every South African is probably asking themselves while listening to this interview. Um, you mentioned government and how they need to change the tariffs, and just generally the just energy transition and what that needs to look like. All of that sounds all good and well, but that's not going to help now. So someone
Yeah.
is listening to us is like, what do I now? Are they mitigating factors that I personally, without relying on the government, can put in place? You mentioned renewable energy and then alternatives such as rooftop solar. Good, but
Yes.
those are still largely out of reach also for
Yes.
poorer communities. They're quite expensive. So what does the ordinary persons, Busiso Mandla Tembi, do at this moment to try and balance out the effects of expensive electricity in simple terms?
Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely. I mean, solar and all those other technologies, they are still out of reach, and I mean, with how the economy is, it's a bit unfair to expect people to have those things.
Mm,
I think most importantly, it's the fact that the immediate solution would be the minister, gazetting a new policy, that's the electricity pricing policy, and also increasing the free basic electricity, because for households, for instance, that are in the deep rural areas, households that fall under the low income bracket, they do get free electricity, but it's only 50 kilowatts,
mm,
and it's not enough. So it's calling for the government, writing to them and requesting them that they increase the free basic electricity, just to at least 300 kilowatts per hour, or, however that the communities may see it fit for them and how it would work for them. And then for the electricity pricing policy, as I've said, that the issue is with the policy itself not being amended to fit with the current energy systems. So either way, the entity that is generating electricity for us
time.
needs to recover their operating costs. So that electricity pricing policy, was approved by cabinet, but it has not come out to the public as of yet. We saw that on the news as well. So when that policy it comes out, the people must make sure that they are commenting on that policy, because that's the policy that is going to lead to us having change.
Mm, no, very, very important. I think we're going to leave it at that. Thank you so much for joining us, Liz. Really, really appreciate your time, even though it's on a conversation that's quite concerning.
Thank you.
There I have it. Yeah, man. Electricity or food. That seems to be like the reality for a lot of South Africans right now. I want to hear from you. I'll still your line 0116800355. How are you balancing it all out? Have you found alternatives to using electricity? Try and cut down on the cost thereof? And also, what do you think the government needs to do? Once again, because I keep mentioning them because the buck stops with the government ultimately. should, I don't know, it just feels like a lot. It feels like a lot for all of us. You're like, no, find alternative energy sources, solar, gas. You're like, there are people that that mere reality is so far away. You know, they can't afford bread. How do you expect them to afford solar panels and alternative sources of energy? Keeping the lights on starting to feel like a luxury, and a luxury that many South Africans can't seem to afford. What have you put in place? 0617660355. I'll see your line 0116800355. What alternative sources of energy are you starting to use? Have they yielded results? Do you see the cost of your electricity bill come down? Or maybe you're from Soweto and you just don't pay for electricity. I'm kidding. We're going to take a quick break. You said we'll continue after this.